Alright guys, Sashko here back again today. Hope you're enjoying your Wednesday so far. Today I wanted to talk about FormaL and the situation right now with the Chicago Huntsmen. He reckoned in a tweet that he released yesterday that he is out of the slump that he has been in over the past few months. Wanted to exactly talk about what that has been, how it has affected the Chicago Huntsmen, and maybe how they will switch things up going forwards, because it looks like the role change that they did with RC's going to, well, you know, he went to the WNAR, FormaL went to this kind of flex MP5 role. Now that's been reversed back around, which honestly I think is the right move. When we talked about the role change at the time, it seemed kind of strange given what FormaL has been in the past, and we will talk about how, like, what a dominant force he has been in previous seasons. Maybe the best COD player of all time, at least him at his peak has been the best COD player ever in terms of like what is possible out of a player at a single event. Like, that's been, like, FormaL's been associated with that kind of name over the years, so him not showing it this season is very interesting indeed. Talk about that over the coming minutes. Like if you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. First of all, wanted to talk about this draft buff this weekend, this draft royale, thanks to those of you who reminded me to set this up. So last time, the Dallas home series, we set up this draft royale, effectively a typical fantasy type thing. You have a fake salary, you get to pick your players for that amount of money, and then whichever player does the best, you end up winning. So if you guys would like to join, link will be down in the pinned comment and the description box below. The first 500 people will be able to get in. There's a 500 person limit on it. We hit the limit last week, so if you guys, or last time, if you guys would like to join, and it's honestly really good fun. Try and beat this team that I put together. Maybe could have put some more time into it, but this is what I've gone for. I've left it at the 250 salary limit, which is what we had before. People were talking about maybe that's not enough, maybe it should be 300. But to be honest, right now there are some players that I think are bargains, just on the back of they haven't played yet. So Mac right now is 20, Shawnee also playing on London is 20, I think. So you can make a really good team based on players that also have really high numbers, just because some are effectively bargains, right? So this is the team I went for, Mac and Spart. Could have gone for Shawnee, but I'm kind of worried that FaZe, New York, London, and the Huntsmen are all in the same group, I believe. So I was kind of worried about picking a London player in addition to all the rest of these guys. I've kind of favouring FaZe here a little bit as well. I've gone Dashy as well. So kind of like my team, Spark from LAG could do well on his day as well. But yeah, I'm intrigued to see what teams you guys will come up with that will end up bettering this one. So let's move onwards then. Cronut CDL Intel yesterday, 2 role changes over the past few days. Slasher no longer on the main assault rifle. So firstly, this is interesting. Well, we'll just share this clip on screen very quickly of, well, Zero and Co. talking about how Slasher, being Austin, is no longer the main assault rifle on the, well, the OpTic Gaming Los Angeles squad.
I was fine with a sub-J, but you know,
can you and Austin be the mains?
Austin's
Austin,
not a main
Austin
anymore.
Be the main. Oh. Austin does it all, Reese, come on. I told you about this.
Listen, I know that, but I just, it was,
Wait,
it was just a change.
Interesting change. In my opinion, that made the most sense in being on the AR. Maybe Dashy is back on that AR. We did talk about how Dashy's now back in the starting lineup. Maybe it's J-Cap, though. Some people have been talking about, is it better to have to Cap on the main AR? Is that the route you go? We're intrigued to see what they do, because I'm not exactly sure. We haven't seen any of their scrims to really see what's happening. Cap on the main AR just doesn't seem the solution to me. But, you know, Dashy on the main AR as well, is that the route? Maybe you prefer Cap not to be in the aggressive role, in a similar manner to, you know, the FormaL RC's situation that we have discussed. But as I will talk about with this FormaL situation, the best teams right now seem to have a main assault rifle that's putting up numbers and slaying and playing for themselves and playing selfishly. That seems to be a pretty good way to play, and I think FormaL for a large part hasn't really been fully executing on that. There was talk in the Hardpoints podcast recently, Merk and you know, Maven talking about how, look, if I'm on the Huntsman, I'm just going to tell FormaL, like, do whatever you have to do to drop a 1.2, and that's like what you're going to be doing. And a lot of the main ARs and a lot of teams right now, Wuskin, Octane, these guys, they're kind of doing that, and I'm not saying their teams are having much success, but there are teams that are having success, like Florida Mutineers, that are also doing something similar, right? So we'll look at that in the coming minutes here, but as they say, FormaL back on the main AR, which to me seemed to make the most sense. Like, I think RCT is going to run a flex better than FormaL can, and as Maven was saying, and the rest of the guys on the recent Hardpoints podcast, like, if you've got internet issues like FormaL has, playing from quite a while away from Los Angeles, maybe it makes more sense to be on the main AR. You can probably win more gunfights, and at least when you're the main AR, you're winning a lot of gunfights where the other people don't really have a chance, right? Like, you're cleaning people up, you're taking long-range fights against SMGs that from head glitches that you really shouldn't be losing. So in that situation, it might be better for you to have worse ping than using an SMG and being first in, where you're just going to get smoked every single time, right, by someone who has a better connection. So that's something to consider. But kind of funny relation to this tweet from Slasher, the MP5 in Modern Warfare will go down to the best comp weapon of all time. Guess what? He is now using it. So RST says this. We did, of course, talk about the podcast yesterday. And, well, as he mentioned on the, I think it was called the trip cap or whatever that the CDL are putting on, he said that, look, we're making role changes. FormaL is maybe, he didn't really say he's not been himself, but not waking up for scrims and stuff is not something that you expect out of FormaL, especially given back in the day how driven this player was, right? Coming over from Halo, coming into the Ghost days, having to do everything he possibly can to team jump effectively up to the top, which he managed very, very quickly, into Advanced Warfare, becoming one of the best assault rifles, and then winning the World Championship in Infinite Warfare after failing to in Black Ops 3 when they were, of course, the favourites, and putting on an absolute clinic in Infinite Warfare. Most people would say that Infinite Warfare champs FormaL is the best version of any Call of Duty player that we have maybe ever seen. I'm not saying he's the best player of all time or anything like that. Obviously, that title for now goes elsewhere. But in terms of peak performance of a player, FormaL is right up there, Advanced Warfare SLUMP is right up there, and these names have been mentioned, right? So that's a really interesting thing to consider. But this tweet comes out from FormaL yesterday. Finally finding my groove. Again, it was in a slump for sure. Refreshed, and the streams will be back tomorrow most likely. I appreciate you guys that have been patient with me. So admitting that he's been in a pretty difficult spot over the last couple of months, and I think most people would recognize this, and it's kind of interesting how, for me, this has maybe gone slightly under the radar. I did go through very briefly through some Reddit things just to see what people were saying, like searching for FormaL, and there's been a lot of threads to this effect over the last month or so, like FormaL is declining, everyone seems to be brushing it off. The replies say that, okay, FormaL and Scump maybe getting used to just gunning their way out of every situation in the jetpack games. Scump may be adjusted, FormaL hasn't done so quite yet. So some more points on this. Is FormaL doing okay? Like, he's maybe been down in his streams lately. All this kind of stuff that people have been talking about. And then we have to look at the KD-wise in terms of what ARs are looking at. And this is it. So this is excluding the CDL Dallas online event and the launch weekend. Whiskin 1.4, Octane 1.3, Dens, Skies, Clay, Accuracy, all these players. FormaL at 11 out of the 12 in terms of pure KD. This is not something you would expect, right? And it really probably is an indication of being, not his best self right now. Not only in-game, but maybe out of game as well. So definitely, hopefully, for the Huntsmen's sake and for us as a community, right, who want to have players like FormaL, one of the best players to ever play Call of Duty, right up there, right, as one of the best players in the game, one of the most enjoyable players to watch for sure. So let's have a look at some of these stats then, because I thought it was interesting to compare what the Huntsmen are looking like compared to some of the other teams that are doing very well. So this is what it looks like for them. Of course, FormaL here at a 1.04, we just looked like he had a 1.07, but they recently changed the roles. He came in for this Dallas home series, or the online home series or whatever with the MP5. Not ideal by any means, RC slightly taken over, but these kind of KD differentials, you don't see these with a lot of the other teams. Dallas Empire you do also kind of see it with, but their like overall win to loss over the season is not great because they keep losing to Atlanta and Chicago. But Chicago are like 13 in, or they're not 13 in 2, but they only lost like 2 series over the course of the season, or very, very few series over the course of the season. So I'm pretty sure we looked at it yesterday, it was 2, both to Florida, right? So this isn't really KDs you would expect when you're winning like 11 out of the 13 series you have played, for example, compared to you might expect that from a Dallas that have lost a fair few series. So just look through a few teams here. This is Paris, Dens with a 1.2, rest of the guys negative. Similar thing you will see on the London team. Then you've got the Minnesota squad, right? So GodRx, of course, going off, but Assault here at a comfortable 1.15. Like, the fact he's putting up a 1.15 with GodRx going off and Alex dropping a 1.1 is pretty impressive. Like, despite him having dominant, like, SMGs and sometimes ARs as well alongside him, and depending on what GodRx is using, Assaults as the main AR is still putting up good numbers. Then you look at a team like, well, like the Florida squad, which is the interesting one for me, is that Ferro's putting up good numbers, but only very recently, but Skies over the course of the season with a 1.23 dominant KD in terms of the main assault rifle. And then you look at Atlanta, which honestly is kind of a different breed. You've got Celium here, mainly the main AR, or at least he uses a main AR quite a lot. Major Maniac really is the AR, but it does depend on situations here. But yeah, I mean, you've got Celium and Simp going off, and Major Maniac, who's technically the main AR, is dropping a 1.1, right? And you don't really see that on the Huntsman team. As you can see here, right, like FormaL had a really, really tough time of things at the most recent event, a 0.75 in search. Like, overall, it just wasn't a great weekend for FormaL, and this is not something you'd expect. Yes, okay, that was online, that's excusable, he's playing from a very long distance away. Still not something you would particularly expect though, and the performances over the course of the season haven't been what you would predict from FormaL either, right? And I just wanted to take you guys back for a couple of years here to look at what we've seen at Champs in the past. So this is Champs 2017. This is the year that they won it in Infinite Warfare. And FormaL, you could argue, is the best Champs player of all time. The performances he puts up to Champs are second to none, frankly. Here he is. This is only bracket place. It doesn't actually include the groups and everything. I think including groups, FormaL had something like a 1.44. But this is bracket, right? This is the real deal. You come to the bracket all the way through the winners. Of course, they actually lost a series to Envy, right? To go down to losers to then win 2 series in the grand finals to beat them. Over 25 maps, the most that anyone had played here outside of the rest of the OpTic Gaming guys. FormaL has a 1.36. Like, this is unprecedented. Scump at a 1.11. The second closest guy was Assault here, and Slasher, of course, at a 1.18. Like, FormaL was on another level right here. And of course, Champs 2018 as well on the Luminosity team, he was, well, at least as good in a sense. He was something else, playing alongside JCap and John and whoever else was on that team. Maybe was it Slacked at the time. On that LG squad, 1.38 over the course of the Champs, and they came out top 6 in the end. But still, FormaL at Champs has been something else. And it seems like when he is motivated, he's one of the best players ever, right? Like Advanced Warfare, Black Ops 3, Infinite Warfare, World War 2, Black Ops 4 as well at times. A really dominant force, right? But when he doesn't have the motivation, I don't think he's really shown it lately, and I think people have been noticing it. That's when his performances drop off. The fact that he can drop these numbers at Champs when he's right at his peak, and then he comes into the league and he's dropping like a 1.07 as a main AR on a game where it's pretty easy to be a main AR, right? Like compared to this game, well, this is of course is the World War 2 title. Mostly you've got ARs here, but you know, Dylan at Champs was using an SMG. This KD's a bit different, but mostly ARs. A similar game in a sense was World War 2 to Modern Warfare in terms of what the ARs could put up in terms of numbers, right? This is what people are putting up at Champs. You're seeing similar numbers in this Modern Warfare title, but you're not seeing it from FormaL, right? So that obviously maybe says something, and I think it has been holding the Huntsmen back to a degree. Of course, what are you going to do with FormaL, right? Like, it's not like you're going to bench him, I suppose, but yeah, people were arguing in the comment section yesterday that that's something you do, especially if he's not turning up for scrims, sleeping through all of this stuff. And I was saying that if you're, well, if you're managing this roster right now, if you're Cinder as the coach or some of the management stuff, you have to be in position to tell FormaL like what is going on and buck your ideas up in a sense, because if you're not waking up for scrims, that's not going to cut it, frankly. And General is sitting there on the bench, a accomplished main AR in his own right that could step into the role at any time and, you know, put on a good performance, I am sure. So I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comment section below here. Is FormaL going to finally get out of this slump and make it work going forwards? Of course, it's very easy to do it in a tweet. It's very much a difficult thing, or a different thing, and more difficult, of course, to actually do it and perform in an online competitive environment. It's difficult, firstly, online, given he's from Los Angeles, but at the same time, or not from Los Angeles, I don't think, but based in Los Angeles, at least in the current time. But what you could say is, look, this coming weekend, last time it was a 0.75 or something with the SMG. Now we're changing roles. FormaL's back on the main AR, really as he should be. Let's see if he can put up some decent numbers here, because most of the main ARs in the game, they're either putting up great numbers themselves and the rest of the team is slacking, and you're not expecting the rest of this Huntsman team to slack. And if they are putting up, and if the rest of the team are going off as well, the AR is still putting up a 1.1 at the very least, as we've seen with Assault, and as we've seen with Major Maniac really, on the Atlanta FaZe team with such a talented cast around him. Similar situation with FormaL. But of course, like, FormaL is above and beyond the talent that you've seen on other ARs on other squads, right? Like, this is a name that you associate with such greatness that him being as he has been so far this season isn't what we would expect, right? And obviously, if he does get to form, Huntsman could be one of the very best teams. So it's good to see he's finding his groove again, as he says here on Twitter. Was definitely in a slump. If he's out the other side of it, might be a much brighter future for the Huntsmen. But I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. So like if you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new as always. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.